In the early COVID days, a group of BIPOC improvisers wrote an open letter to the late, great I.O. Theater, calling for, among other things, a new decolonized curriculum. Upon hearing that, my reaction was what I imagine my late Uncle Jesse's reaction might have been. What in the blue-eyed, buck-naked hell is a decolonized curriculum? I more or less dismissed the idea as just wordplay by sociologists who had too many papers to write and not enough information to go on. Then I heard the term a few more times used by younger people and possibly members of my own family because I am an ape, and as the late physicist Edward Teller told me, the way you make an ape think a thing is important is to have another ape get excited about it. So I began to consider and investigate this whole notion of a decolonized or a colonized curriculum. My search led me to the inside of my own brain and what I taught my children about first principles. I and my wife are etymology fans. The line has always been, I want to understand the meanings of words down to the silent Greek vowels, which is my way of saying I want to understand the meanings of words down to the first principles, to explore their meanings and origins as far back as I can. Decades ago, I became a fan of the Oxford English Dictionary because it was and is an etymology dictionary as well. It gives you the meanings of the words down to the silent Greek vowels and a bit more. This is the point. English did not begin with Greek, nor Latin. Both of those began, as far back as we can tell, with what's called the PIE, the Proto-Indo-European. Long before I started saying down to the silent Greek vowels, as soon as I started reading etymology dictionaries, I knew that the Proto-Indo-European was as far back as we can trace the origin of words. But why did I keep saying down to the silent Greek vowels? Why did I tell my children learn it down to the silent Greek vowels? Because I live in a country that was colonized by Europeans who were infatuated with the Greeks. They and their descendants created academies and institutions of learning that reflected that infatuation with the Greeks, so that even though I knew better, I trained my thinking and what I taught my children about English back to the silent Greek vowels. This was for me the 13th chime of the clock, the one that calls into question not only itself, but all that has gone before. If I could be so habitually spouting a thing that I knew for a fact to not be true, and on a subject that I really care about and am interested about and passionate about, what else might I be certain of that is not correct? They say that in any collection of data, the fact that is most obvious beyond any need of checking is the mistake. If you ask yourself what are the things that we say that aren't true, that we know to be untrue, it doesn't take too long to make yourself a nice little list. For example, I am obviously not black. My skin is obviously brown. My wife's skin is obviously not white. If I saw somebody with actual white skin, I would run. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. It was at least obvious to the people who greeted him when he arrived. Hi, Chris. Talking about this to a dear friend of mine, his response was, who cares? What difference does it make? Confucius says the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper names. If you want to make the world a better place, it really helps to understand what it actually is. That my education reflects the colonial worldview upon which it was based is not a sign of their evil or my naivete. It's just they won and they wrote the books from their perspective. And that's how the game gets played with human beings. When I start to think about how much of what I think and believe and the tools with which I manipulate my thinking about the world is just the fashion of 18th century European aristocracy, it's like taking the red pill and wondering how far down the rabbit hole it goes. I can certainly understand anybody who has no interest in going down that rabbit hole because it is apparently deep and scary and forces us to question all kinds of assumptions. But the good news is we have questioned all kinds of assumptions in the past. We no longer think the world is flat. Most of us. We no longer believe that chaotic physical movements accompanied by screams is a sign of demon possession. We now understand about epilepsy. We no longer think that mold on your walls is a mark of Yahweh's displeasure. Examining the colonial nature of some of our fundamental cultural assumptions won't make those implicit biases go away, but recognizing that they exist will be a tool, one more, to help us see the world just a teeny bit more clearly, sort of like cloud penetrating radar. I'm in fact pretty excited, if a little scared, to see what it looks like down there. But I just can't turn away.